Good morning, everyone. This is Frank Castillo, your host of Frankly Speaking, with our sixth program of the year. With us, again, our good friend and neighbor.
Memo Castro, good morning, people.
Wonderful day. It's a nice, cool day. I enjoy the weather change, but it is too cold outside. I'll tell you that much. I did need my jacket today. There's a couple of things we wanted to bring out in our topics for today. And the first topic I had was what was happening again in our universities, in our communities. And while I realize Brown universities in Rhode Island, they had a gunman, and I don't know if they've essentially caught the person yet, Memo.
From what I have, they have a person of interest, and that's about it.
It's got to be something of an investigative matter, but it troubles me that our students, young people, get hurt. I mean, we've been on a cycle already of maybe 20 years where started with Sandy Hook, with Columbine, with other schools, and now the universities also are getting a little bit of the taste of the gun violence, of the violence of whatever weapon it is, but mostly violence to our children.
Yeah, they're going to hear the rhetoric. It was probably mental issues, and then you have political issues, religious issues, like the thing that happened in Australia. You know, you go right back to it, you know. And it's sad that you may want to think it's, mental issues, but then it's religious issues, you know. And
everybody seems to have a reason to do the violence at the end of the day, but what is the reason for us to do something about it? Do we have the resolve in this country, in our communities?
You could have gun control, and you could have more background in investigations, and you could have everything set up. But what it comes down to, the black market. You can get guns on the black market. It's a big business. Our border, you know, here we funnel a lot of guns into the wrong people in Mexico. You know, but you have Mexico has strict gun control, and look at the country.
And I'm no expert on how to purchase a weapon, but you can purchase weapons online. I know that. Mm-hmm. And you can purchase them at a gun show. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be very open, where you can actually purchase this on the spot. Mm-hmm. Even though I always thought there was a waiting period. I know there is because I tried to purchase one, and I did actually purchase one as a gift. Not for me, but it's a gift to be able to purchase a handgun for a friend of mine that I think he needed it and wanted something like that. So what happened is that, yes, they ran my license through some kind of check.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, did you run your license to your friend?
No. And I was told up front, this is a gift, I'm purchasing it. Well, as long as you're the one, okay, yes, I'm the one purchasing it. And so, yes, it happened. I would not mess around with telling them it's for my use, because I don't believe in that. I went ahead and did it, that they ran my license, and they gave me an hour, I think, at the store to get it.
Yeah.
And they told me to wait. Then they came back, you're clear.
Yeah. You see, they look for incidents of your background check. Is you a felon or have your arrest record? They don't look at your mental state of mind. Look at these people. Look at the young man that killed Mr. Kirk. Okay, clean record. Got the weapon, killed him. But the idea is that, was it mental issue? Or was it this? To me, it's people get sick because they want to get attention. They want to bring in what they're fighting for. They want to make at whatever cost. You know, I don't believe that. How can you fight it? You know, you gotta have severe penalties. You know, maybe I'm barbaric.
Well, the penalties are what should stop somebody from doing something illegal, right? That should be the reason. I mean, if you do the crime, you do the time, right, type of mentality. Yeah. And I think it does, but in order to get it done, it does take regulations, it does take legislation, and sometimes some politicians don't want to go that route. They say, no, it's not the right thing for our community.
You have to understand what our country was founded on. freedom. Freedom to defend yourself, to arm yourself. This is the basic rights, fundamental rights that we have. How are you going to penalize those because we have some people that alter? You see, guns don't kill; it's people kill. It can be a knife, it can be a bomb.
The idea, no, the weapons are the one killing.
It's people are not behind the
weapon. The weapon is the one who does the mass shootings.
Yes.
The ability to shoot bullets at 100 per every 30 seconds or 20 seconds. It's understandable that the weapons are the ones doing the damage. And so we actually had good regulations before where we wouldn't sell those high-powered weapons. And it seemed to have helped quite a bit until that law was changed by the proponents of people who say it's a free Second Amendment right. And so, yeah, we got into those things. I believe that's how we got into more shootings. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think we need to do something. That's my point. We cannot just allow things to continue. God protect us. I mean, it was very close at Uvalde. Very close. And they even set up some idea of a commission to look into it, but they really just to investigate it. And they came down and said, well, law enforcement didn't react or didn't react promptly. Well, what can you say about that? I mean,
human failure.
Yes.
And the thing about it is that, you have to put yourself in a position not to defend why they didn't act. It's the fact that you have the wrong people in leadership, and it's been proven.
Okay.
That's probably it, because when you put yourself in that harm's way, you put yourself in a position to where self-preservation comes first. Very few people have the guts to go in and confront themselves. You saw that man that went there in Australia unarmed, and he went and took the gun away.
Yes.
He reacted, knowing that he could have gotten killed. That to me defines courage and hero. To me, very few people like that.
Yeah, but we do have them, right?
We do have some, at the time.
Very courageous people will say, no, stop.
Exactly.
You can't
and
do
they'll
that.
stand up, and this is what it takes. It takes one individual to stand up. He may have saved a lot of lives.
Of course.
The thing that, in my point, I would have said, taken the gun and shot the guy, but he didn't. He didn't.
I know Memo. Kill the guy.
Kill the guy. The old West. What happened?
I want to take you back to what you said earlier because I wanted to not rebuttal, but I did want to put a different point of view. Back when the era of the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, I don't think we had those automatic weapons.
No,
and I don't think we had. We
had cannons.
Yeah, I mean, very hard, right, to be carrying around your cannon to shoot at people. But actually, I don't think anybody back then anticipated that people would turn on people like we are right now with all this massacres that happen. I don't think back then they conceptualized, oh yeah, we're gonna have this guy with a musket go and shoot 20 kids at a school or a church, which is happening more often now at church. I don't think they conceived of that idea when they created the amendments, right? And so, yeah, I think it's time. It's always been. I'm fearful. I don't know if you are, but I worry about our kids.
Oh, I do too.
Being in the school board, every day, and then human error to make something happen.
Yeah. The thing about it is this: as we evolve and as we get to where we're at, I would say almost 50 years ago, I remember our principal, Henry Sollers, was talking to us and telling us that in California, I'm talking 50 years ago, I graduated in class of 72, and if you look at it, 50 years ago, California had security guards already in their schools. New York, the same thing. Why? Because too much liberties, I guess. I don't know, but you know what? At that time, we didn't have that. We had parent involvement in schools, PTAs were involved and all that, and the thing about it, you had more control, maybe because we were a small school,
But I want to say that we also have some very, not intellectual, but well-educated, perhaps parents who knew a little bit about how much they could do to affect school. Right now, it's very social media just throws out a lot of things that are misinforming the public.
Yes.
And I've seen that
Mhm.
they misinform the public, and so you end up standing up to saying, "I need to correct this information," and you end up doing things that shouldn't be the priority. We shouldn't be worried about what Memo Picasso thinks. Let's see what Memo can bring
To the
in a good
table,
way.
yeah.
In a good way as a parent. And I believe too, I participated probably just like you did in our kids' sports events at school. Whatever we were doing, or even the girls' programs, we were there. We never let our kids alone.
You had parent involvement, but even then, the parents that didn't get involved, I remember I was dropped off at school, and my dad took the time, and it was 6 of us, and it was hard, parents had to work, but he would always tell me one thing. He says, there's one grade that belongs to me. It's a reflection of how you behave in school, and that was conduct.
Absolutely.
And he said,
"Oh, I remember that well. I remember that well."
And that A was the easiest A that had to do nothing but obey and keep quiet. And at the end of the day, if by chance he would tell me in his own way, which I can't say it, but if God blessed me with a son that wasn't capable of doing his homework or stuff, that's on me. But you know what? That A reflection is how I bring you up. Nowadays, you have parents dropping off kids. Nowadays, you have single parents trying to raise kids, and they have too much on their table. So kids go out. They look at the TVs. They look at the iPhone. This becomes the world to them. You take that away. We had a person that took away his phone, and he ended up killing his mom in South Laredo or something like that. So media has a lot of responsibility too. They sensualize it. They give them ideas, I'm a firm believer in prayer in school, and people say, "Oh no, that can't be done," But you know what? What is it a prayer in the morning going to do so bad? Regardless if you're not a believer. That moment that
it's
God
called
enters
moment
you.
of silence,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of schools actually do have that
Yeah.
memo. But of course, it has to be given the attention that you do have this right to. If you want to pray, you want to meditate, if you want to do any type of acknowledgement to your faith or your religious beliefs, but you have to be sure and careful not to exceed that, to impose it on someone else. Right?
Let me ask you. When I was going to school, they were telling me, "You have no rights." They would tell me that. And maybe because we decided, "Oh, wait a minute, I do have a right." But let me ask you. I got the paddle for being a clown or for being disrespectful. And you know what? Sometimes people act that way because they want the attention that they don't have it at home. And if that paddle, rightfully, there's some people that overstep their bounds, but that discipline always kept me in check, and it get the attention that I needed. Bad attention, well, guess what? You're gonna be looked at. Now you have an alternative school. You throw them all in there, all the bad apples in one place. I consider that wrong because I don't think there's a kid that should be a bad apple. Needs special attention. You might not get it at home, but I had a couple of coaches that had to smack me. I had teachers that cared, and sometimes you have to address the issues whether they like it or not. But that's what's happening with our youth today. Parents don't take the time to invest in their kids' future. My dad always ended this with me: cry now or cry later.
And I remember that old cliche also, spare the rod, spoil the child. In other words, if you don't take care of your child at home with your own discipline, it's essentially going to spoil them to think that they can get away with anything. Because if they get away with it at home, that means they can get away with school. So yeah, there is some importance for the parents to be disciplined and regimented for them to send that child ready to go and have a learning experience at school. And then we don't want to blame, I have always said this, I mean, don't blame the teacher for them just teaching. Of course they have a role in this, but at the same time, I've always have told my children, whenever something that you find a problem with, don't take it upon yourself to take care of the problem, because it's basically two students and it might have a difference of opinion. Always go to the source of authority, which is your teacher. Now, people will say, well, that means you're teaching them to be weak. No, I'm teaching them to be smart. You know, I cannot take, if I have a conflict with Memo Castro, I'm not going to take it upon myself. Oh, here, Memo, here's what you get. No, it's basically, or Frank, you know, here, get this. No, I say, hey, Memo, I'm going to have to bring it up to the attention, so on. So I always try to tell our children, go to the source where they can actually help you. Because if you take your hands on your own, no matter, you're probably not going to be very successful.
No. I'll be honest with you, sometimes you kids have to stand their ground on certain issues, you know, but when it comes to violence, no, violence will only lead to more violence. I'm just saying, what happens here in school, you know, sometimes we sweep it under the carpet.
Well, yeah, and you know what, I'll interrupt you for a minute because I don't want to lose this thought. Yeah, sometimes we tell our kids to take care of things because as parents, they don't want to have to deal with it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we do have some parents who say, "Okay, no te dejes, mijo."
Oh yeah.
No te dejes. Oh my God, it's not about dejarse or anything. It's just
you know, bullying exists only because we allow it to exist. When we were in school, there was always a tough guy or a tough girl that employed her will against us.
Against a lot of kids.
Right.
I remember that.
I remember that. And it took time.
Yeah.
And then you would back off, walk away, but there is a time to stand your ground. This is when, you know, because we allow that. In our days, it was fist fights. Nowadays, it's guns.
Yes.
It's knives, you know.
Yeah,
we
it's
saw
scary.
Yeah, when we were growing up, I saw guys that had switchblades, and he said, filet. You know, we had a term for that. Fileros. But the deal was this. It came to understanding what was motivating this kid to get the attention. Sometimes, you know, you have psychologists now, why are you being bad? I remember that. Well, he's probably being bad because he wants attention and he's not getting the right attention, so he's going to take, you know. You can take away certain things, but, you know, when I was working at the jail, I used to have, and you know, when you're working at the jail, it's another jungle. You would realize there were guys that were meat, there were guys that were takers. And in there, the meat only survived because he either stood up or he didn't sit up and he became the other guy's dominance, you know. Yeah. And sometimes standing up to a person and not backing down, he learns to respect you. And he walks away. Oh, with this guy, I don't mess around.
Yeah, without any physical problem.
Yeah.
I agree. I think there is a point where a child can actually start doing that, but it does take a time. I mean, you can expect a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
Oh,
you
no.
gotta probably get to the middle school age. Then they can probably say, "Hey, stop! Don't do that."
No.
And that's what I've been teaching my children and my grandchildren now. Is, you know, there's a moment to say, "Stop! Don't do that." And I hope that it ingrains in her that she does have a right to say no to some things. Yeah. Now, if you're getting assaulted, I can definitely say you can be physical. You have to return the same kind of physicality, I think that's the term, if that's coming at you. Don't stand there and have somebody hit you with a bag over the head. No, you do need to protect yourself. And so I can almost recall the same thing as you. There was always one bully or two, and you just walk around. Yeah. That's what we would do. And you wouldn't do much more. Because they wouldn't really mess with you. They knew who to mess with too.
Yeah.
The weakler or the ones that were a groupie, they knew who
they would always gang up you. Yeah. I remember in high school, Never got into a fight, but only once. I didn't back down from the guy. And we said words, pushed each other. And then when he realized that I pushed back,
That's stopped.
he just said, okay, he walked away. Later on, he became a good friend of mine.
Most of them do. I have had the same experience. Most of them do. That somebody who was really getting on my nerve or getting on my case,
Yeah.
and I finally said, okay, you know what, you might be able to beat me up, but all I want to do is just land one punch.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I want to do. And it's true story. And the final end of this memo, I can share with you and our listening audience. I can tell you this much. I've always told my friends, my children, in order to avoid having problems where somebody accuses you of doing something, is never take anything that doesn't belong to you.
True.
That's really,
Always
and
respect.
keep your hands to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in a way is the golden rule. In a way, you don't mess with anybody, and nobody messes with you. Just keep your hands to yourself, and don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. Because once you violate those, then you will face the consequences.
Yeah. I always told my kids, hey, stand your ground, let them throw the first punch. Then you can retaliate.
Yeah.
But, maybe it's the wrong idea, but
Well, we started with the idea that I was discussing, gun violence and how do we curtail this and how do we protect our children from our schools and all that. I think there are some solutions that can help control that, and people want to say, why control? Well, what else do you want to say? Regulate? I mean, it's a fancier term, but at the end of the day, how can we best have a good, safe environment for our children, for even adults that have worked in an environment. They're there working, and not to have somebody come in and just basically go wild on them. And I know you talked about a family and how important it is for our grandparents, and I know you and I were talking about it earlier before we started about grandparents and grandparenting, making a more active role in our schools. What ideas did you have?
I was thinking years ago, they used to invite parents, grandparents to come and speak to the students, but I think there should be an active role. We have a wealth of talented people that have retired, educators, businessmen, I guess from all walks of life, that instead of spending their golden years just sitting in a rocking chair, bring back to school, come back to school. Let the districts vent these people out there that are willing to give their time to teach these kids, this is the end result. I went to your school, or I was sitting in your classroom, sitting in the corner, not taking advantage of what I should have done. We as grandparents, and I say that,
I know that we have like mentorship programs in our schools. Are you talking about it a little bit more in depth,
more
active?
I like to call it grandparents with a paddle. And what I like to say is this: is they come into school and they talk to kids that are troubled. Instead of setting alternative schools and maybe address that issue, or just getting involved back to school, giving some of their time. I remember.
So you're kind of acknowledging though that some parents don't do it, right?
There's a lot of them don't do it because they don't get invited, or they don't have the idea. Well, my kids are all grown up.
They're working too.
But there is there. I see my grandboys going to school right now, and when my son was going to school, I got involved not because I wanted to. I was pushed into it, but then that was the best thing of my time, because I not only was my son, I had a bunch of kids that I grew up with. I learned from them more because I saw myself. I saw myself giving something back when I saw parents, when United was formed, active parents, business parents, being involved, because we were a small school. But they took of their time, their busy time, to give in there. And I know there's single parents, and there's how they call it, couples that are struggling because our economy is going on. But the best interest, the best asset is your children. They need to take the
And the best use of their time, and
Yeah,
I'm
would
agreeing
be
with you,
to be with them, you know.
is to
Uh,
bring your child up in a healthy environment.
Exactly, a protective environment. You know, when they see that, I guess if more people get involved, the resources there. You know, I've been fighting and not really fighting, standing up for what UISD doesn't do or didn't do anymore. But I think the answer is amongst us. It's amongst parents, grandparents, alumni coming together, giving a little bit of their time, not costing us, giving a little bit of their time to make the school better. Why? Because you enrich a child, whether it's your child, you know.
And it's an excellent point, Memo,
Yeah.
because again, having served on the school board,
Mhm.
I can honestly tell you there were parents who had wonderful ideas, and then there were other parents who had no motive except to maybe just make things look worse than they were.
Mhm.
Because I think right now I can safely tell you, I think it goes for any school in any school district.
Mhm.
I'll say it this way. They probably do have a volunteer program. They probably have a mentorship program. But, maybe more specifically, it's what you do locally. Locally is where you go. Let's say your kids are in this school, well, that's where the grandparent needs to go there and help them
Mhm.
and be able to bring some kind of positive feedback to the administration that's there, to the administration or the teacher. Help them achieve what they want to do in teaching our children, our grandchildren. And it can be done, but it has to be done with an attitude that we're here to help, not necessarily change you. Because,
Yeah.
I don't want you to go change my
hell,
child
I don't
or
want-
grandchild.
No.
I want you to go help, fine, go help.
Find the
And
solution.
so there's gotta be some parameters
Right.
that you can do it. Don't go and pretend that you're there to just get rid of somebody or this person only because you don't agree with them. Well, how can you help things?
Mhm.
What can you do that's better?
Now more than ever, because of the financial that they're in right now, the answer is, let's just raise taxes, and let's just do this more funding. Let's raise another bond issue. But look what's happened with all these bond issues. I can speak for the Mines area. We were promised a high school. We're
Well,
not
you
gonna
got
get it.
2 middle schools over there.
Yeah.
One middle school, right?
No, you got two. Ramirez, and you have.
Stand corrected. There are 2 of them. So
and how do you call it?
I know we didn't get
Washington.
anybody.
Yeah.
anything.
But the idea is this,
Yeah.
what is fair. Now, you bring in parents, you bring in grandparents. I'll take a page from when we started our booster club. It was a middle school. And we started raising funds because we needed to address the needs of what our boys needed, both boys and girls, whatever. And we raised a great sum of money. And I remember reaching out to the coach then. I asked him, I said, what do you need? And he told me, he says, there's a list that we can't afford because the money's not there, the budget's not there. But I would love to give my students a banquet. I said, okay, we'll do that. And we did that. We raised enough money to buy uniforms, to address the needs that we didn't have to burden the district for it. But we had that cooperation and that solution. We had parents that stood up and followed it. And it went all the way to the high school, the same parents. We had a hand. My son got out of football as soon as he got to be a sophomore, but I stayed on, helping on, because I had 23 other kids that I considered to be my kids. I had an obligation to see them through.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was very informative. She became the chairperson, ran like a little general, had the money controlled and stuff like that, but we did something for our kids. And the rewarding factor was we saw these kids come and thank you. Thank you for being a part of them growing up. And I think now that we're grandparents, we want to do that. See our kids flourish. You see, money goes and comes and goes. But what you leave your legacy is that you were somebody special to somebody that made a change in their life.
And then that's what we've been talking about, you and I, since we started this program, is the legacy that we're leaving to benefit the government, to benefit our schools, to benefit our children. It's not really for us, and
No.
we're doing anything.
That time is come and gone.
Can I have, well, not me, I have some ideas, because, well, I mean, my education tells me I can offer things that maybe others cannot. And so when it comes down to education, you know, it was a learning experience, but it's also an eye-opener. And I met a lot of wonderful staff, I really did, and wonderful students, and they are doing everything they can to be successful. At the end of the day, what we have right now with the budget issues, things like that, some of them have been imposed, quite frankly, in my opinion, imposed on their school districts throughout the state. They have no other means to survive unless they make some cuts. Well, the only way that can happen is if the student enrollment is down. And the student enrollment in some parts of the state, I was reading up on that, it seems to be the parts where, you know, just people are graduating and there's a lower childbirth rate, but also the new voucher program that some parents are looking at next year, sending their kids. In fact, it starts in January next month, that they'll be able to send them to private schools. But I want to say here in Laredo, I think our private schools are maxed out. I could be wrong. I think they're maxed out, because there are very few of them, unless you want to send them to a Catholic school. And there's maybe, I don't know if any other faith or religion has them, but I don't know how it's going to impact our school districts at LISD and UISD, but that's not fearful to us or anybody. But at the end of the day, if the state is not going to give you the monies insufficient, I have no issue with raising taxes, because I know there's going for a child growing up. I have no issue with that.
With the situation.
Taxes are the lifeblood of government.
Yeah, but there's got to be certain ways to raise it. You know, look at the lottery. The lottery was supposed to be money earmarked to education, and didn't. You know, you see, the word trust, integrity means a lot. School board members now don't stick to the issue. You have administration that they're overemphasizing administration. You have UISD running a business, not so much the quality of education. You know, there's a lot of issues that are unknown that have to be addressed. You know, transparency is key to any government entity. You know, everything is looking at, you know, there's abuse in government, there's abuse in school districts, and you see that. I mean, look at the administrative cost of a school district. Look at the salaries. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be paid, but the quality of education is not there. You know, I believe in AI now coming in. I question that. Why? Because we're teaching our kids not to think. You're teaching or relying on a machine. Use that machine to enhance your education. But the fundamental, the old way was better. Penmanship, writing, be able to think in your head, one-on-one, arithmetic, science. We need to concentrate on vocational, from cybersecurity. That's a big market that's coming up. Also the trades, mechanics, building, plumbing.
And then wanted to put you in a bind. I'll throw this back at you, because so who do you listen to? The parent who says the quality is not good, or do you listen to the professionals who are involved, or even Texas Education Agency? They're giving some schools A ratings.
Yeah,
they're giving them A+.
A lot of that is
I mean, who are we going to believe?
Where do they get the statistics? I see it from every day. I see from the workforce side, when they talk about it, they say we're preparing a workforce unsuitable.
Yeah, the mechanism itself, I don't know, but I believe it has to be somebody in our district that has to report by law what's the student involvement and how our students are graded. They have to do it. And we've mentioned this before. I do trust
Let
the
me ask you,
employees.
wasn't there
Hmm.
a school that got caught for fudging those ratings in our district? That came
School?
out, there was a school
Okay.
that came out and they did something about the ratings were not right, the classifications were not right. They manipulated those ratings. I heard it and I didn't want to mention it, but that's what I'm talking about, lack of transparency.
Okay.
They
I
were
see.
reprimanded. You see, the quality of education, you see it in the children when they graduate. We have some top educated, we have some very good dedicated teachers, but they're overshadowed by those incidents.
But yeah, it's overshadowed. But you have to give them the validity only to a certain point. Did I ever see? No. Yeah, but did I know about it because it's brought up to every school board member or things like that? Yes, there were administrators who are no longer there, right?
That's right.
So it is a very big deal to the state.
If it happens at a small level, what do you think that at the state level? You see, I sit on some boards and when we're talking about funding, we get trickle down benefits in the South Texas area and in the metropolitan cities like Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth. They get all of the benefit structures. And it comes back to why? Why are we getting the crumbs? And the reason comes back to is because the people over there vote, the people there get involved, and down in South Texas, we don't.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons in my view, right? And I'll give you, taking away from what we're talking about schools, yes, I see it. I recall maybe back in the 80s or 90s, I was always appalled with the conditions of our roads in Laredo, right? We were just built, they had just finished Interstate 35, but still most of the arteries and all the other traffic control measures, like, why is this not planned right? Look at Loop 20. Why, it's behind the times. It's needed, but why couldn't it have been done 20 years ago? And all that? Yeah, because sometimes our legislature, people in Austin, wherever it might be, or even the federal government, didn't think it was important. But now you see the booming of the import-export, and you cannot avoid but go on Mines Road, and I'll bring you up on that, without an 18-wheeler next to you, or if you go up the corridor 35. So it's neck and neck at times, back trucks. So there you go, a family of four driving in a small car, and yes, it's a very different matter. But anyway, my point is this, that I recall that it happens like that. Yes, that sometimes some people get the cream of the crop, which I did see one day that I was traveling up to Austin to a major university, not in Austin, but outside of it, and they had this beautiful 4-lane highway right smack to a university outside of Austin. And I wonder, like, wow, look at this beautiful highway, 4 lanes, shoulders, everything, cosmetically, aesthetically, as they say, landscape and everything. But nobody was in it, except me. And then you went up to 35, and back then in the 80s and 90s, you could see the traffic being congested in Austin. I said, where's the planning? What happened? So sometimes what we see, Memo, is not exactly what's happening. Somebody must have pushed hard to get that money for that area, and they did it. Why did they get it ahead of others like us in South Texas, in Laredo?
It's involvement. The problem is that we enjoy the sleepy town atmosphere. We want the
How about an attitude of a sleepy town attitude?
The attitude also, because you got to remember back then, coming to Laredo, it was controlled, and it's still controlled. And that's another issue we're talking about. When it's controlled by certain developers, controls the growth, the mindset, partido viejo, that you want to call it, okay, a mentality. Look at the valley, how it's outgrown us. And it was grown because outside influence came into this area. Aldo Tatangelo came to Laredo and bucked the system and won. and we have a form of city
A more
government.
progressive.
Yeah, more progressive than what we
I
were
like
before.
that term,
We're,
progressive.
yeah, we were 50 years behind the whole right now. 50 years behind. That's how we are. Laredo's 50 years behind.
Well,
everything.
and I'm not gonna be here also to lament that, but I mean, there's, in my view, I mean, we give them too much credit, the valley. First of all, there's no valley. Secondly, there's just communities that congregated together, just like they did our Constitution. People came together to say this is the way we can operate. Well, they got it together, and they got it from Brownsville to Rio Grande City and all the cities in between. They said,
it was
let's get together and bring things over here.
the mindset that came in.
And that's what we need. Also, I agree, in Laredo, we need to.
We need to
more-
think outside the box and say, this is better for Laredo.
If we work together
If we
rather
work
than
together.
against each other.
Yes.
And I think, I know that we went into some topics there that, might have different views, different ideas. We're just offering this to the public so they can consider their mindset themselves, right?
Mhm.
Think about what they're
That's what it
doing.
comes down to.
Yeah, think about what they're doing. But do we love our children? Of course we do. And do we want to protect them? Of course we do. Do we want to make sure that we have sensible rules for handgun purchases, for whatever the case might be? Our safety is paramount. That's the last thing that you want happening in any institution, whether it's our schools all the way to the universities. And it would be a tragedy if we have done something that we know. But I think for what we know, there are laws that govern this. So you cannot just take somebody and say they're evil because you have a gun, or is it right? It's not going to happen.
If you study the history back then, I remember going to school where you had kids with Winchesters in their truck. Nobody took.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be something that knowledge
It was
of
a
how to
fad.
handle.
I think it was a fad. I mean, because it was like you would have this anchors or hangers.
Well, there were gun shells in your window, and back then it was every Ford F-150 had a Winchester,
A Ford 150.
yeah, or a Chevy, yeah,
Or Chevy, yeah.
yeah.
Silverado, I think it was.
Or Silverado didn't exist. It was just a Chevy and a Ford,
Okay.
or a
Chevy,
Dodge,
Chevy, yes, I
They had their
remember.
Winchester in the back of the car, and they would go. They were in school ground.
Yeah, but
But-
do that not right
Ooh,
now, though?
no,
You
no.
better not even bring a gun
No.
shell.
Not
I
even
mean,
a bullet, but the
not even-
deal is this: things have changed, and there was more discipline, less liberties. Back then, that's why I said earlier, my right to come to school. Yeah, it's a privilege, not a right, And a lot of the things that we talked about now is that the lack of, school enrollment is that this new immigration, they're not coming to school. Because every morning, go down the bridge, you saw a bunch of kids coming over, getting the free education or renting an apartment. And now that they're looking at that had a big effect, Was it that we needed so many elementary schools in South Laredo? Look at that. They're almost wanting to close one or two. Why? It was based on
Enrollment. Sure.
Enrollment, that you had illegals going to school, reeking off of it. And I'm being saying the truth. You're going to say, well, you see, the problem lies is every child has a right to come to school regardless. I agree with that. But there's got to be some type of mechanism not to overburden our taxpayers. In Mexico, do you think they allow you to do that? No, they don't. You have
I
to
have
pay.
no idea.
Oh, I know they have to
I
pay.
have no idea.
They
but
don't have really free public education like we do.
I think, yeah, I appreciate your point of view and I consider very much what you're saying. I have no issue with free public education.
No,
In fact,
I'm all for it.
I went free college too. I don't
Yeah.
think we should have had anything where we have student loans ripping off students for their high interest rate, just to go to get a college degree. So, or a collegiate degree.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of areas. And so do we want to be able to provide our families, because especially if they live in our residence, and I think that's the laws, that's what the legislature has to work on. The law says quite clearly, if you are a resident of this area, you get to enroll in your public school.
But there's also legal resident.
Oh, there's different types, but a resident
No.
is
This is where we disagree. Have to be a legal resident. It's very easy. You have people that come from Mexico that want to become legal residents. They can apply for it the proper way, because they're paying rent or they're buying a home. That's fine. That's where your tax dollar is coming from. The bottom line is that we find ways to fund the schools. You have an appraised value, of your home. And there's a new legislation coming in that they want to do where no property taxes. If I'm fortunate enough to pay my home, and let's say the full sum, and my home is appraised at $350,000, but 5 years down the road, it appraises to double the amount, for whatever reason, I have to pay taxes on an appraised value that I already paid for. So when does that house become yours?
Yeah, and I see your point. I don't, like I said, you and I'm not going to probably agree on this.
Yeah.
It's obvious to me that when I cannot pick and choose which taxes I want to pay, I really can't. I shouldn't be given that, because that means everybody down the road, every resident is going to say, well, you know what, I don't want my taxes to go to military invasions. I don't want them to be out there in Venezuela. I don't want my taxes to be paying for oil subsidies. I don't want my taxes. We don't get to choose. Should we have a right? Maybe we should. I don't want it to be given to build a wall. No, it's never going to be fair to everybody.
On that, I agree that we shouldn't be paying walls because there are laws that prevent that from happening, but yet we don't enforce those laws. Why? Because we're all about trying to pay cheap labor. The mayor said something about the quality.
Labor.
Yeah, the mayor said something about the quality of education, trying to build that civic center that badly needed. Why don't they propose a living wage to pick up the standards in Laredo? It's still $7.25. You see, anybody that wants to do business with the city will hire somebody and pay them at least $15 an hour if they want to do business with the city. Private sector will follow. Some of them are paying it, some of them not. You have 80% of the warehouse people that are working in every warehouse here in Laredo. They're coming from across. They're not obeying our labor laws. They aren't. And that's the truth. I'm not lying, I'm not slandering, it's the truth. Every morning when you see those cars coming in, and every afternoon when you see them going back, that's a workforce going back. I don't see them shopping at the stores. Maybe they do shop, but the bottom line is that workforce should be here. Here people don't work because they can't afford it.
I defer to you. I know you have a better understanding what's going on in that business sector with that. And I've always had this.
And we have to compete with that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It seems unfair, right? But then you have some people in the U.S. have corporate means to say, I'm going to go build my store in Laredo or in Monterrey. Manufacturing. But not only that, some things are abarrotes, groceries type of thing. You now have some HEBs over there. You got Walmart over there. So somebody's taking advantage of that too. They're businesses, they're corporate businesses that go over there and they kind of hinder anybody else from doing it. So it's not fair, right? It shouldn't be, but at the end of the day, we have to live with it. Some of it we live with it. Some of it we come out and voice our views and our opinion. We don't know that route. You know it better than I do. But I agree. I know when I get on Interstate 35 and happen to be downtown early in the morning, I mean, you see all those cars zooming up north to mile marker 13 I hear.
Exactly.
They're all coming to do work. And we've had, I want to say, in my experience, yes, I've known friends who resided in Laredo and worked here, but they were allowed to. They're legal, or I don't know what they do to the checkpoint. There's something about them having the ability to be able to do that.
Well,
you know?
they have what is called, they have a working visa, and they get around with
Oh.
it because they call it technical people. We have a university here that pushes so much technical stuff, they can't get a job to pay their loans. Why? Because Laredo market doesn't support them. They have to go someplace. And you hear about these great kids doing some great things all over the country.
Mhm.
But they couldn't do it in their town because we don't have a living wage. We don't have a structure for them to make a life here. You know, the bottom line is they reap that education that basically comes out of Laredo, Texas, and they become leaders someplace else.
Yeah, it's been happening for several decades already. They
different.
do that. And how do we get young people, especially young people, but anybody with an education to come and help us here in Laredo? I think
We need to fix the structure in Laredo.
well,
We need to fix the way of things are being done.
yeah, because I'm sure people would say this is not only my salary, but it's my living environment. You know, what do I have close by? What's the parks? What do I have that helps my family grow better? Yeah, in fact, I was going to ask this friend of mine that I just talked to this morning, but I didn't have a chance to ask him. I said, why did you move to San Antonio?
Well, I'm glad you brought that
But
up.
Memo, we're almost out of time. I'm sorry.
I'm
We
gonna
need to
say-
continue.
I'm gonna tell you this. This is it. All my family moved to San Antonio because they follow their kids. I don't follow my kids. My kids move out of town because they want to build their lives because Laredo has nothing to offer. I came to Laredo in '64, been in Laredo, gone away, come back. Why? Because there's something about Laredo that we have, that I found. At my age, I'm not going to go and follow my kids. My rainbow is here. This is my peace of mind.
Well said, and I almost agree with you completely.
Mhm.
Like I'm from Laredo and live and die here in Laredo. I look at the traffic out there, 1604 and IH10. I said, no, they can keep their traffic. I mean, it doesn't faze me. The schools, I think we're okay. Yeah, maybe we can always improve, but that's the challenge of all of us. So the challenge is to always try to improve, become better persons ourselves,
Yeah.
and educate the public, which is what we're doing. Remember.
I would love for the school boards, both boards, is to include grandparents with a paddle. That's mine.
Okay, Memo. I'm sure if anybody listens, that maybe that might be something they want to tackle.
Grandma with a paddle.
Me, I just want safe schools. I want safe school. Learn, because at the end of the day, I want them to come home every day.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's going to be it for us today. Thank you so much for listening to us and enjoying this conversation we have.
Frankly speaking.
Again. And once, I don't know about the holidays, how much we'll be able to get together, but if we have time, we'll be producing something.
Fine.
Anyway, Memo and I, we always enjoy the holidays, at least at work, something. Okay? So once again, have a good evening and good day, and we'll be talking to you soon.
We need to find a better connection. So you don't have to be jumping up.